comparing to other.
It's come up. Meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
Yeah, I've just got a little start bar going across, redirecting, and we should be live. We should be live now.
Excellent. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Open Spaces Committee meeting of 11th of February 2021. Sorry for the delay. We had a small technical error there. Right, on to agenda 1, public question time. I think, Alexa, you've got a public question.
I do. I have a letter from the Beaconsfield Society, and it's also worth noting that since then, there's obviously been a lot of activity in the town. I have 31 other emails of very similar information on the same topic. So the letter to us says, dear Alexa, the Parklane allotments. As you know, the Parklane allotment holders have been given notice to quit by the owners of the site, which is very sad to see, as these allotments have been tended for generations and are in great condition. Many of the allotment holders do not have a garden of their own. The well-being benefits, mental and physical, are evident, and it would be a great loss to the town if this asset was lost. Moreover, you will be aware that there is a waiting list elsewhere for allotments, which would only increase by the Parklane allotmenteers becoming homeless. The site having been tended, I'm told, for over 100 years, the soil is in great condition and the produce and flowers produced on the site are both impressive and, in the case of produce, an obvious benefit, especially in the times we currently find ourselves in. The allotments are very popular and that popularity is increasing. I am writing to ask if the Town Council would consider acquiring the site for the purpose of providing ongoing allotments to satisfy the need. Section 23 of the Small Holdings and Allotments Act 1908 provides that on a representation in writing by any 6 registered council taxpayers resident in the area, the council is under a duty to provide allotments to meet that need. That duty can be met using powers of compulsory purchase provided by Section 39 of the Act, or by agreement, of course. Please could you let me know your thoughts? If you need further information, please let me know. I'm happy to help. Best wishes, Alison Wheelhouse, Chairman of the Beaconsfield Society. So I also have, as I say, another 31 letters in a similar vein. I don't propose to read them all out. This item is only in the public question time at the moment, although we will be discussing the Ivings Road allotments later on. But there's obviously a very strong feeling in the town, and you may want to consider this request.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. It's a very good question. And I think we probably need to look at it and give it the details that we can at a later date, really, because I think it needs a bit more investigating who owns the land and everything else like that. But yeah, no, it just proves how much allotments are important to the people of Beaconsfield, and how much mental health well-being they can generate from that. Yeah, it's something we will certainly get back to them as soon as we possibly can. Okay. Right, do we have any apologies for absence tonight?
I do have apologies from Councillors Reid and Councillors Hogan.
Okay, thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? I'm not imagining there will be. Okay.
Alistair's got his hand up.
On mute.
You're muted, Alistair.
Don't worry, you're not purring, just muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm just declaring a membership of the Beaconsfield Society.
Excellent. I think you'll still be okay. Okay, so number 4, minutes of the last meeting.
There's a few other hands up, Clive.
Oh, I can't see those.
Oh, Jackson and Sandy have both got their hands up.
I'm also a member of the Beaconsfield Society, as declared in the register.
Excellent, well done.
So am I. I'm also a member of the Beaconsfield Society.
Good. Like to hear. Okay, minutes of the last meeting. We just need to confirm held on the 12th of March. Are there any questions from the minutes at all? Observations? No. Can you do me a virtual scribble? Okay, number 6, CCTV at the Holtspur Youth Club. I think you've had some dealings with this, Alexa. What can you tell us?
I have. Quite a long time ago, we had, probably in my first go at the town council, when I was new, the system started to fail, and I got quotes to replace it, and I was a bit over ambitious because I thought I could roll this in with other larger CCTV projects, which I must admit I have had correspondence from councillors not here this evening saying something similar. Could this not be rolled in with something similar? This seems to be quite difficult to achieve, and it slows it down, and it means that in the meantime, what was failing a little bit is now failing a lot at the Holtspur Youth Club. It is a separate system. It's not currently linked in with the wider CCTV. So I've basically had the quote updated and modernised for what's possible at the moment. And what we could have is replace those cameras with 5 megapixel cameras, but the cameras now would actually have a SIM card preloaded, which is inserted in. It's a camera which has the SIM card inside, and that means that the footage could be accessible by us instantly or by the youth club instantly if we wanted our neighbourhood policing officer to have access to that, because we have had some letters recently from residents, and I know that Councillor Basterman has written to me about this. People are concerned about antisocial behaviour and how quickly we can respond, and at the moment the response is slow because we have to wait until the next day when we can get into the building to physically access the machinery. And now it appears that there's water inside some of the cameras, and they've been there a while now. And so the quotation that I've given you is for 2 options. One, just to replace the cameras and the system. And the second option would be to include the 4G router and the SIM cards so that information could be accessible on the internet.
Okay, and from what I've read of the quotes, I mean, we use a similar system in our business. 5 megapixel cameras now. One of the differences will be that the imagery when it's dark as well, you will get better imagery from that, as well as imagery which the police, if there was anything to happen, can actually use. Those cameras are protecting obviously people straight away, but there's also the play equipment, which we've had instances of people mindlessly trying to set fire to bits of wood before now. So we'll give that a protection, and play equipment isn't cheap, so we do need to have that protection. So from what I can see of the costs involved in this, while yes, it would be nice to have it on the bigger system that we have around Beaconsfield and Holtspur, the short-term cost of this is very low compared to upgrading the rest of the system, and that won't take months, that would take years. Whereas this is something which I believe we've got the okay to actually agree that amount of spending from a committee basis, and this is something which we could have done within days or weeks on it. So I would definitely recommend it to the rest of the committee to go ahead and get this upgrade. And I would say to get the full upgrade, to have the package where it can be monitored on the internet as well, because having to wait for getting into a building, etc. Yeah, you can go backwards on an app, and you can have it sort of 48 hours ago, 12 hours ago, 2 minutes ago. It's a lot more sensible, or you can have immediate viewing of it straight away. So is this something we need to vote on, Alexa, or is this something that we can it's already agreed?
No, it's something you need to vote on, but you've got Sandy's got his hand up, and so is Alistair.
Okay, brilliant. If we can hear from Sandy first.
Oh, and Philip, sorry.
Can I declare I'm a trustee of the youth club at Holtspur, please?
Okay, lovely. Alistair, what would you like to say?
I just wanted to comment that in the minutes from March 2020, there was reference to some problems at Woburn Green Lane Sports Field. And I'm just wondering whether we should take the opportunity of looking at a similar system there at the same time.
I think that's a good idea, although the sort of antisocial behaviour we have had there, I'm not sure how secure the system would be, but and we have less ability to cite the cameras, but it is something that I would like to do, and I know that Clive has agreed that before. But yes, I'll make a note of that to update that at Woburn Green Lane.
Yeah, I think Woburn Green Lane, they were slightly more dramatic how they got in by taking actually a concrete wall out. So yeah, yeah, we need to. I think that one needs a totally different thought about how we actually how we do it. So yeah, but sorry, someone else had their hand up a minute ago, but I didn't see who it was.
Philip.
I had a question. Philip.
Hi, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Alexa, for that presentation. Wholeheartedly support the recommendation and everything Clive said. I think it's important that we have the right kit and we are able to view it virtually rather than having to go to the youth club to get a card to look at. So I think that makes sense. As you say, there's been a lot of, there's been some vandalism, there's been some suggestions that might be drug-related activity in the park. So I think that we need to get this replaced as soon as we possibly can to protect local people, but to protect our assets. Because as you say, we've invested and the friends have invested a lot of money in that park and we don't want to see that vandalised or reduced. I'd also draw attention to a couple of other matters that need addressing, which is there's a basket swing that has no basket or swing. I believe it's been vandalised. And so I would ask that we think about replacing that. And also the zip wire has no seat. So we have no zip wire. So two of the biggest bits of the park, the best items, are not operable at the moment. So I would propose that we get those replaced so that people can go back to using the park as they should be doing.
Yeah,
Okay.
Just the zip wire seat is in the town hall at the moment. We've got a replacement. I'm not quite sure why it hasn't been fitted, whether there's a bit missing, but we got the seat ordered and it's been delivered, but I think there's been some issue in lockdown about getting somebody out to fit it, something like that. The failure on the swing is really unusual, and we think it seems, I'm not sure whether it is vandalism. I don't know if it's a failure of the thing itself. It's been quite unusual. One of the it has like two tensioners on either side and one of them went, and so actually John has had to disable it because it wasn't entirely safe, but I'm aware of it. I'm not sure what the status is at the moment about getting it fixed, and I think Lorna's got her hand up.
Sorry, can I just finish? Is that something we could speak to the manufacturers about then? Because maybe that's something that they should be looking at, because I think the equipment is guaranteed for a period of time.
Yeah.
It's only been in there, what, 5-6 years? So
yeah,
it should be fixable, I think.
Yeah.
One would hope so.
Thank you.
Lorna, you had your hand up?
Yeah, sorry, I was saying no to the dog, by the way. Sorry, not to you. Thank you. The last time I was speaking to John Bull, I asked about the zip wire, and he said he had to take it down because of the lockdown when the park was closed. He took it away for that purpose because people weren't supposed to use it. So is that not correct?
I'll double check. We also had an issue where the tensioner on the two wooden bits at the end, one of those, we had to do some work on that, but that was completed a few months ago. So if it's a safety thing, I would have thought the seat could go back on. So I'll talk to John about that. I mean, I think this far into lockdown, people know about hand sanitizer, washing their hands, using equipment. I can't really keep them off it. And I can only advise people, and we can put up signage as to what they should or shouldn't be doing at the park. There's only so far we can go. But if the concrete, it had to be dug out and concreted in around the base of one of those things. So if that's all now complete, I don't see why the seat can't go on back on it. If that's why he took it off, but I know the seat's in the town hall.
Okay, if you could look into that, that would be great, because to get the play area up and running again, that would be really good. Not that many people want to go out in the cold at the minute, but we are coming to sort of times of year when the days are getting longer and the kids will want to play with it more. Okay, so CCTV. So do you want to vote on that?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. If we could have a show of hands, if Alexa, if you could keep a look on this, just to see who approves the idea of upgrading the CCTV and the communications package for it as well.
Chairman, can I just ask? I don't have a vote on this committee, as I'm not on this committee, am I? Okay, I'll keep my hand down.
Yeah.
But the mayor and the deputy mayor can vote if they wish, as they are ex officio. Okay, you have a, and Philip, were you a, yeah, you've got a
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone voting against that. I'm correct there, yeah? No, that's good. Okay, if we can arrange that for ASAP, that would be wonderful.
Will do.
Okay, item 7, water fountain on the town green. How are we getting on with that? Is that Alexa?
Okay, who wants to take this one? Alex, I'll start, shall I? You've got an updated report. We seem to have gone a little bit around the houses with this, and I think it's purely a matter of communication. So what you've been sent this evening is you should now have a report which details the fountain, the actual fountain, and the model number, which we're hoping to install, or the water fountain group are hoping to install. They have raised almost £10,000 so far, so they've really put their back into it. And really, we're now getting to the nitty gritty, because it's to be sited on the town green, which is a piece of common land, and the group have achieved consent from the Secretary of State for it to be placed on the common land. There have been varying designs about exactly where it would go and how much paving would go around it. Now, we have asked the group if they would reduce the amount of paving and site the fountain a little bit closer to the pavement near the bus stop, so that it just has a little bit of paving around it, and you've got a drawing. It's not completely accurate drawing, because the drawing you've got in your report has got a little red circle from me, so showing you how it would just pull a little bit closer, and we'd have a little bit less herringbone, so we'd keep as much grass as possible. One of the other issues is the notice boards, and I've given you a picture of how they look at the moment, sort of photographed from the middle of the road, which is a bit of a Google Earth. We might only have to move one of them, just move it to the left. Bucks are okay with that, it's not a problem. We're not restricting access to the common or anything like that. And what we have said is that the signage is not going to increase in size, whatever happens with those. Another question was whether there would be a sign for the sponsors. And again, have you all got the photos that I've sent you of various things? Okay.
Alexa, would you like me to share them? I can put them on the screen.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Should we? Oh, that's very technological.
Yeah.
Let's make you co-host.
I'm saying that. I think I can.
Hold on 1 second. Well, try and share. See if you can share now. Hold on.
You've disabled me.
There you go. Try now.
Okay. How are we going to do this? Let's go with that one. You got that?
Blank. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yes.
So this is the area you can see. There are the two signs tucked away there. And the plan is to put the drinking fountain, obviously, we'll move everything around so that it's in the right place, closer to this park, which makes more sense. If we move down, this is an example of the sort of fountain. I think this is an example of one that's put up near the Tate Modern by the same company who are going to be supplying the fountain for the drinking fountain organisation for this project. It's a push button drinking fountain in the sense that you just put your bottle underneath, push it down, and the water will come and dispense into your drinking bottle to refill it. Now, the idea of the signage is to either, the option will be to either put it against the back of the fountain here, and here we could put some sponsors on, or even, and this is quite an unusual looking thing, this one here, there could be an opportunity perhaps to do something on top. But either way, by taking the sign, talking with Peter and Deborah Saunders, putting the sign onto the drinking fountain alleviates one of the requests of the planners. And then down below you see some people drinking from a fountain as well. Okay, can you see that okay?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Up at the top here is the plan. So if you look at this plan, the idea was these two signs here, I don't know if you see my cursor in front of where the drinking fountain will be moved across to the left as you face it. The drinking fountain's coming forward to be closer to the hard standing. And the good news about this is the block paving, whatever design herringbone we put underneath, will be a much smaller area, maybe even half a semicircle. And then what that means is obviously for wheelchair access, you can just wheel up to the drinking fountain and then use it. This is, this group, Deborah and Peter's drinking fountain group, worked incredibly hard. And I know Alexa said, they've been running around the houses. It's actually probably via Carlisle. This has taken them 2 years of working really hard to get this sorted. And I have to say that in this report, there was an email sent from Simon Gray, who was just sort of looking at what was being put forward, and there were some amendments required, and they have done very well in putting this together. So I'm hoping that we can put this forward and get this thing underway, which would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think if they're happy to do those adjustments that we've suggested, I would like to see it spring forward, literally, because it's just, as you say, 2 years in the making, and it's such a good thing, especially with people walking and exercising more. I know, yes, people have been in lockdown, and that's encouraging to exercise more, but going forward, I think people have built better habits, and if they can take a bottle out and refill it, I think that's going to be very, very good. So I guess at this stage we're just waiting back to hear from the committee for the water fountain, to wait for them to tell us to go furthermore.
Alexa will comment on that.
Yeah. Also, you've got Lorna's got her hands up, and then I'll reply.
Okay, Lorna.
You're mute.
Thank you. Apologies if I should already know this. How do we know how much water it's used? Is there a meter? Do we know how successful it will be? How many people are filling their bottles from it?
Hopefully very successful.
I'm sure it will be. But I was wondering how we monitor that.
I haven't got any data on that, but I should imagine that the group may have. It's an initiative really about stopping plastic use rather than increasing water use, but that's the concept of it. They're being installed all over London, all over the country, and it's quite a positive move. I don't think it's going to be huge. We've been told that the maintenance costs would be, or because it's likely that the town council would adopt this asset. We're going through a number of stages here. So like when you buy a defibrillator, the group does all the work and raises the money, and then the town council takes on that asset and maintains it in the future. We've been given to understand the maintenance would be around £200 a year, including the water usage. Just to go back on what Clive was saying as well, this is Councillor Dunlop has already been working with the water group on this, and they have agreed these items. So I think that's why Deb had her hand up. So if I can run through them, but this is what I would we're asking you to agree on, and then the water fountain group, we can talk to them to instruct their architect to draw this up, and then we'll be able to move forward. So we are agreeing the location of the proposed water fountain in the drawing that you just saw that Alex put up. Agreeing that the notice boards will be moved to the left and not be any larger than the existing notice boards. We'll agree that it is the fountain that you've just seen 3 pictures of, and that it's going to be in the matte black, because the picture that we had from the middle of the road, that shows the old benches, and of course we've replaced those benches with the black, the matte black recycled tree saver bench, and also the bins are black. So the street furniture around that area is black. So
Yep.
we would like to go with the black design. To agree that there won't be extra signage acknowledging the donors, but it will be on the unit itself. To agree that the hard standing on the common will be reduced in line with the diagram you just saw. And if you can agree and approve all of that, then we can instruct the water fountain group to get their architect to redo the drawing.
Okay, that sounds good. So if we all do agree that, is there any way in which we could actually help the fountain company to actually speed this up? Because obviously the next meeting is scheduled for around about middle of June, and it would be nice to see this sort of thing installed before then. So are we able to in any way say tonight that if this is actually agreed and the committee then say yes to it, that we can then tell them to do the next stage as well?
I love your optimism.
I know.
What we're trying to do at the moment is achieve the landowner's permission for this project to go ahead. Once we achieve the landowner's permission, and we're in a bit of a catch-22 because they won't give the permission unless we're kind of in agreement that we're supporting the project. So that's where we're at the moment. They will then give us permission, after which I need to submit a certificate of lawfulness. That will take, with a fair wind, 8 weeks, I suspect.
Okay, that's still before June.
Theoretically, that is still before June.
Yeah.
There's a lot
I'm just thinking anything we can do to help speed this up so that we're not just locking this into the next meeting of the Open Spaces Committee. Is there anything we can actually do tonight to agree that if they do X, then they can go on to the next stage and get the planning permission? I presume it's needing planning permission?
No, it's the certificate of lawfulness replaces planning permission.
Oh, excellent, excellent.
So that's the bit that I need to do, but I can't do that until I've got the landowner's permission. So
okay, so we have the Secretary of State saying we can do it, but not the landowners bit. Right, okay. So I presume, yeah, okay. So if
we can agree this, then the drinking fountain group can update their drawings with their architect, which will help them with and make sure it complies with everything that you've just heard. That will go to Bucks County, who are the landowner. They will hopefully agree the landowner's permission, and then I can put in the certificate of lawfulness, and that'll take 6 to 8 weeks with the best will in the world. So that's as quickly as we can do it. There are so there's nothing that's being put in the way that makes them have to wait until the next meeting in June. So if they get all of the things that you've just said, they can get on and just do it. The hold up will be if anyone further objects with Buckinghamshire Council.
Okay, well we can't do anything about that bit. So we're on the understanding tonight, as long as they agree to what we've said, and as long as they get the land permission, then this project can actually start before the next Open Spaces committee meeting.
It has to come back to Open Spaces to agree once it's all there to say yes, we're doing this. And we've
Could
got
we not? Could we not agree? Could we not agree that tonight, that if box A and box B are ticked, then it automatically pass on to box C?
I think if you added the maintenance cost would not exceed £200 a year, then probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be the sensible way to help spear this on, because as you say, 2 years for a drinking fountain, it's a fantastic cause, and for the town, we want it sorted. So if we could agree that tonight to stop any more delays from dates of meetings, etc., that would be really good.
I will do my best. I mean, it's kind of outside our hands. We have to have that certificate of lawfulness agreed.
Yeah.
And
So
then
if we can agree that once we've got that, next stage is just to go ahead and do it, then because as you say, the amount of running costs per year are negligible really, and we've already agreed it previously, the costs, and I believe we've even had it at a town council meeting where we've said we would take the costs. That we should actually just progress this and not hold anything back.
we have, but at the risk of being council Jobsworth, I need to have the right permissions in place in writing. I need permission from the landowner. I need the certificate of lawfulness, and I need a council resolution that we will adopt the thing that, because until Bucks County Council give us that, I can't ask you to take a resolution on something that isn't yet given permission by them. So I think with the best will in the world, I think it is going to come back to committee in June. If we can get it back before then, I'll try. But I think that would be our best hope.
Right. I would hope it wouldn't need to come back to committee. But
Philip has
anyone else got any other comments on the water fountain?
Chairman, just have one question. I wondered what the time frame is, whether it be possible for the full council to make a decision if we get everything back in before the next full council?
Yes.
Rather than bring it back here?
Yeah. When's the next full council? Is that May time? Was it after the election?
Well, I had it scheduled in for the 22nd of March, but it's going to have to come forward a week because actually, sorry, not 22nd. They're going to announce the election on the 22nd, and I didn't think they'd announce it till the 29th. So I'm going to have to bring the meeting forward to the 18th of March. But if we had the information, Philip's quite right. It can be brought to full council.
Okay. Well, there's that as an option to speed it up. If the drinking fountain committee can actually sort out all the other bits, if we can get it all in there, then we could get it before town council, just so we can get it done before the summer. Because I appreciate this thing is going to be used 365 days a year, but the summer would be a really good time getting it going. So, okay, all right, yeah, no, if you can weave any magic on that.
Chairman, sorry. Yeah, I'm just going to add, because we know that sometimes when we get to full council, some people question procedure at great length. Can we also agree that we either authorise, or whatever the right wording is from the town clerk, the council to take that decision on our behalf for the avoidance of doubt?
If that's something that's possible, Alexa, I'd be more than happy for it to be done.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of the other way around. Philip is absolutely right here that the full council can take the decision, and actually something which doesn't go on here very much, but which is quite possible, is any item might be brought forward before the next appropriate committee. So if it's a tick in the box, it might about spending the £200, it might go to resources, or it might, which is going to happen 2 weeks before full council, or it could go, there are other reasons, other ways in which you can do it. You can bring the stuff to an appropriate committee.
Okay.
All our committees have some element of appropriateness, and as you can see, there are lots of councillors here who are not actually on this committee but are attending and chipping into the debate. So it can be done, and certainly it can always be done at full council.
Okay.
Could we just note in the minutes that we're happy for that to happen, Chairman, and then if the debate comes up, we've covered ourselves?
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, I think that's pretty clear now, Alexa. If there's anything we can actually do to help with this and speed it up rather than having to drag out to other meetings, I think we're all in agreement for that. Okay, right. So,
do we have to vote on your recommendations, on the officer's recommendations?
Could you take a vote, and then I think Deb wants to thank you.
Okay, so I'm presuming the vote is going to be that we recommend the water fountain on the town green proposals that we've made alterations to tonight.
On the recommendations that are in the report that you've received before this meeting.
Yes, for the plaque and the colour and everything that's in the report. Yep, I would like to propose that, and I would like to vote yes.
Okay, that's resolved unanimously.
Okay, right. Allotment is next. Ivins Road.
Deb would like to say something.
Can I just say thank you to all of you for your support, and I do hope that this will go through now, but your support has been very appreciated. Thank you.
That's all right, Deborah, and your help has been excellent. Thank you. Okay, item number 8, Ivins Road allotments. I think probably Jeanette will probably have lots more details for us than I could ever give. I chatted with her the other day, and yes, she has lots of information. Over to you, Jeanette.
Thank you. Hopefully you've all read the officer report on the Ivins Road allotments. I will just briefly summarise for you all. So the town council, sorry, there's a bit of feedback. Someone needs to turn their mic off. That might help. Okay. The town council run the allotments in Ivins Road, just off Hotspur Top Lane. There's currently 25 tenants, 32 plots let, and a waiting list of 58. And the plots are let annually on the 1st of October, costing £25 per year and 15 for concessions. We note, as we've just said, that the Parklane allotments have been given notice. We also have another 3 plots at the Ivins Road allotment set aside for the community garden, which in effect will provide more than just for 3 people the ability to garden at the allotments. It would provide for perhaps tens of, if not more, people to help. But that still doesn't really address the shortfall of need now the Parklane allotments have potentially disappeared. One of the other proposals is to review our waiting list criteria. At the moment, it's first on the list gets a plot. So the recommendations are to clear all encroaching scrub to maximise the potential of plots on the Ivins Road allotments, to limit plots to 1 per household while there is a waiting list, to notify those few existing tenants who have a plot to, sorry about that phone call, to have a plot to, of our long-term intentions of having 1 plot per household instead of 2. And we would work with them on a one-to-one basis over a period of time in a consultative way. To have a priority criteria, and you will have seen I've sent some suggestions of that to you, and to enable more people to have access to reduce some plots to a smaller size where suitable and by agreement. Having been in the last week or so to the allotments, some people find the allotment too big and they've just dealt with a little patch and mown the rest. So there's clearly an opportunity to work with that person, find out why, and see what the opportunities are. Or some people clearly aren't tending their double plot, and there might be reasons why that is. And it's to work with them so that we get the maximum benefit to the most amount of people on that site. to investigate the potential of better water supply, and to work with residents to encourage a residents association for the allotments, to hold an annual allotment holders competition, and finally to explore possible further new locations for allotments in Beaconsfield. So that, in summary, is it. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I think Philip's got a question for you. I can see a yellow hand there. He's muted himself.
You're on mute.
It's got to be the most common used phrase of 2020 and 2021.
Yes.
Philip, all yours.
I don't have a question, so if anyone else has got any questions, please go ahead. I've just got a couple of comments, really. If you're
go with your comments first.
Yeah. I think I was going to ask about the plot size because I recall at a previous meeting we'd agreed that we would seek to reduce the plot size possibly by half for renewals so that we could actually have more capacity. And also we'd said that we would, where people weren't using the land properly, that we would consider asking them to move on. So I guess it's not unreasonable where they're not using half the land to ask them to only have half the land and free up the other half for someone else. I think bearing in mind the question that we had earlier, Chairman, and your recognising that we've only just had this issue formally raised to the council around the allotments on Amersham Road, I would suggest that we put on hold any work around the community gardens, because I think that those allotments might be required for allotment holders rather than community use. Clearly, they can't be used for community use while we've got COVID, and I don't see that changing in the foreseeable future. So it might be that we reach a resolution that, or a resolution is reached by whoever that enables the allotments in Amersham Road to be used, and we could go back to the community garden. But I just think for the moment, we should put that work on hold until we know what's happening with allotment provision across the town as a whole. Yeah.
No, I hear what you're saying, Philip. Certainly, I think there's actually more to the allotments than we're actually hearing tonight, because from having talked to Councillor Dunlop and Alexa and also Jeanette about the actual allotments, there are actually a lot more plans. I don't know if everyone is actually aware of. Alexa, we were chatting earlier on today about some improvements we were talking about, being an area where vehicles could turn around rather than having to go forwards and backwards up there. And the idea of the community garden, I think is, I've probably used the garden word less and used community allotment, because there are lots of options on that area. And I believe there's designs for raised beds so that it could be used for teaching school children how to do vegetables, so that they could then teach the ideas back to their parents and do it in their own gardens at home. Also have the accessibility of people in wheelchairs with raised beds for them to actually be able to attend allotments, because currently, if it's down at ground level, they've got no chance with a wheelchair. So I think it's possibly been misnamed community garden in that sense, and I see it more about vegetables and raised beds for that. Alexa, I think you said you might have some pictures of someone's done some plans for us.
We did show the pictures at the last meeting. I will, perhaps whilst other people are talking, I'll try and get those pictures up. What I would say is the plots that we have put aside for this are plots which have not been very workable in the past. They are completely shaded by trees, and it's not a very fruitful area. It's immediately as you go into the allotments, first on the right, and there are large trees because it's right next to the sort of the first house, and there's a lot of shrubbery and that sort of thing. There is an argument for what you're saying, but the idea is, with the current situation and the requirements that we have in the town for community growing and community projects that involve growing, this would actually reach far more residents than 1, 2 or 3 allotment holders. We're also replacing, with what Alex was talking about, we've just created another 2, I think, and Alex thinks there's potential to create another 2 as well, so we won't lose any. And I think that Alistair's also got his hand up.
Okay, if we could go to Alistair first.
Yeah, can I ask, I don't know, Jeanette, if you know the answer to this, but if you don't, maybe somebody else does. How many allotment holders are there at Parklane?
I think there are about, well, there were about 40 is the information that I have, and there are about 50 plots. When I went there last week, obviously some of those allotment holders, knowing that they were going to be moved on, have found other places. They haven't let some of the plots in the last year, is what it looks like me walking around. So at the moment there's around 40. They're not all necessarily, I don't know the names and addresses of those 40. I've just been given headline details. They're not necessarily all from Beaconsfield, but I think the majority are. And quite a number of them don't have gardens or don't have the space to grow in their home vegetables, things like that. I would just add,
I think at some point, probably as part of the attempt to answer and deal with the question that's been posed tonight, that we need to understand how many people actually are walking or very close by to those allotments, because I think that's quite critical when we're talking about, you know, creating extra capacity at Ivans Road, or alternatively looking around the town for another site. So I think we need to understand, A, what is the demand in total, and B, where are people geographically situated before they start their journey.
Yeah, just can I just answer that question first, Lorna? The 58 that are on the waiting list, some of them would have potentially requested a plot to a number of locations. And what I plan to do, if after this meeting, assuming that you've approved the various different recommendations, is to contact all of those people on the waiting list, because I think the reality is it will reduce because some of them are elsewhere and don't need that plot anymore. So that's another piece of work to do, as well as finding out the details from who's on Parklane. Again, they have to give permission themselves to release the information to the town council that they're on the Parklane allotments. Yeah. Lorna?
Sorry, Lex, I can't see you.
Lorna.
I can't see who else had their hand up.
Lorna does.
You're on mute, okay. Lorna.
What's the average length of time of a tenant? How long does an average tenant stay there?
I think I've only been looking at allotments for 2 weeks. But doing my research and speaking to different people that I bumped into at allotments, it takes a lot of work to maintain an allotment and get it to be very productive. So once you've done those, you know, the first 3 years of graft, I suppose you start reaping the benefits thereafter. So once you've got an allotment and you're doing that, you know, people talk to me, they've had that an allotment for 18 years, was what somebody said to me at Parklane. So once you put in your heart and soul into it, you want to continue it. So to answer Philip Basterman's point, if we gave those 3 allotments that are set aside for the community allotment, let's call it that instead of a community garden,
Yep.
they're not going to be interested in doing that for a year because it's back-breaking work initially, to then give it up for something else. So, and take it away from them, which would be not nice. So that is an issue, and the allotments that are the community garden with the raised beds would allow those people that remain on the waiting list to do something this year.
Alex has his hand up.
Yeah, just briefly, at £20 or £24 a year, it's not expensive to just keep hold of that land, and that's where we've tried our best to manage it. And talking with Jeanette, where these recommendations come into their own. We have made quite a lot of improvements, as you know, over the years, and they are looking very good. But I think the biggest thing is to try and get some of those people who are obviously struggling. We've got to be a bit careful because of the problems with the pandemic at the moment, to reduce the size of 2 plots to 1 plot, and that will free up some more space. But it's very easy to hold on. I mean, initially when I first joined council 2014, the allotments, people held them just really because there's a fear of development. They just kept them there, didn't do anything with them because they didn't want anybody else to have them. They thought if they didn't have them, somebody might build a house on it.
Okay, Alexa.
Sorry, Philip's got his hand up as well, but I just want to say that in answer to Lorna's point, the tenures are either the way that Jeanette's described of some of the people at Parklane, where they're there for years and years, and we have a couple of those at Ivans Road, and their allotments are absolutely beautiful. But the other thing that Alex has described happens a lot, and people take an allotment and they think it's going to be a bit of a laugh and they're going to get down there and do it, and it is backbreaking, and then they don't carry on, and it's Beaconsfield, they've spent the 25 quid and it's, you know, so they just leave it. I've tried, I haven't really got hands-on with this over the last couple of years. I've had other people dealing with it. I know that you did try to reduce the allotments a few years ago and split them in half. That didn't go so well because then 2 halves were reissued to the same tenants, which wasn't exactly what your plan had been. Also, the other point that you mentioned about if people don't maintain them, that should change as well. Again, there was some miscommunication with that, and so those people, although they were given notice, were told that you can do that from the end of next year. So again, it wasn't quite how we had hoped it would go. And then we are in a situation where, unfortunately, you know, some people haven't been able to tend their plots because they're shielding this year. And so I think what Jeanette was trying to be at pains to say is we will work with people to figure out why they're not tending their plots, and if we can move them on. We're not looking to be wicked landowners, but as soon as you have a plot that's untended, I can guarantee you the plot next door is miserable as hell because your weeds are mucking up their plot and mucking up their years of work. So it's really difficult. I think Philip had his hand up again as well.
Philip.
Yeah, I'd just like to come back. I mean, I think obviously if we think that these plots, the communal allotment plots, are worth having for the community, I'm assuming that you could actually get to a point where you can grow something. So I don't think it's correct to say that they couldn't be grown upon. But anyway, my point is that at the moment, the community allotments can't be used anyway because you would be in breach of COVID regulations. You're not allowed to have more than 1 person from different households on a community allotment. So in all likelihood, they're unusable until October when they're due to be renewed. And all I'm suggesting at this point is that we should defer doing any more work on it until we've got a clearer view of our approach to allotments across the town. And whether to answer the question that was raised earlier by the Beaconsfield Society, we have already fulfilled our legal obligation to provide an allotment because we have the allotments that live at Ivans Road. What we do around the Amersham Road allotments is a separate matter, and Chairman, you've agreed to take that way and look at that, so that's fine. But I think the community allotments should fall within that discussion as well, because it might be that actually we could divide that into 6 plots, and that would help to meet the clear demand that we have from the waiting list. And I suspect that when Jeanette does her research, she'll find out that perhaps some of the people from Parklane are already on our waiting list because, as she says, they've foreseen what's going to happen. So it might be that we're already addressing some of that demand as well. So I just think in the round, we've got time. The community allotments can't be used anyway, to just put that project on pause and to see what happens with allotments in general. And at the end of that, we might decide we still want to have them, but I don't think it makes sense to set them aside for a community that can't use them whilst we know there's a changing situation and increased demand in the town, which we're looking at anyway.
Okay. Did you manage to find that design at all, Alexa?
Oh, hold on one second.
I think Alistair, did you have your hand up? Okay, sorry. Any more questions while Alexa's trying to fish it up?
How many plots have we actually got there at the moment?
There's 32 plots. Those are the 32 halves. In other words, 32 plots, 25 tenants.
Okay, so 20. Some of those tenants have still got two plots, I take it, is what you're saying.
Yes, yeah.
Quite a few of them, yeah. Okay. Oh, I say.
So what I would say is where you see the minibus and the walkable lawn, I would say that none of that is probably really growable. Particularly, it's very shady, and as you can see, what's going on here is there would be a shelter with rain chains, which would actually supply some of this area. This is a rain garden because, again, it's very shady, it's mossy, it's in the undergrowth. This is the compost area. Again, it's in the undergrowth and a woodland area. This bit is growable with raised beds and with stuff on the ground as well. So the idea is that it can be accessible. Children might not be as easy to achieve the raised beds, but they would grow on the ground. And then in this area, we've got a sensory garden and the walkable time lawn. And the idea is, because currently we have complaints from a number, some of the residents there, because people do, they're not really supposed to access with vehicles, but obviously it is heavy to bring stuff onto the allotments. And what they do at the moment is they drive in and they reverse straight out through quite a narrow driveway, and the residents there are holding their breath every time, thinking they're going to lose their fence. So the idea is that it would at least give an ability to turn in for other people as well, to do a 3-point turn and be able to drive out nose first, so that they wouldn't have that risk any longer. This is not it's not an enormous size, actually. I mean, it's kind of packed in with small areas, but it's not a huge area itself.
Okay, and so the allotments will be to the opposite side of this, which is the area which is obviously less trees and we can grow more easily.
Yeah.
Okay.
So back to...
And also, that's not a done deal yet. I mean, it's gone to the community board to be considered for match funding. If that goes ahead, it would come back to resources or to full council. They'd still have to have another discussion about it. It's not something that's, as Philip said, it's not going to happen in 5 minutes anyway.
No. So this is more of a long-term plan than a short-term. Okay.
So back to the Ivans Road allotments and the improvements and recommendations. Would you like to ask any more questions or take a vote on that?
So if you can just bullet point your actual recommendations for what we actually are talking about voting on.
Shall I do one at a time and then you agree them each individually? Would you want to do that?
Yeah, go on then.
That's probably a simpler way of doing it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. To clear or scrub to maximise the plots that that are at Ivins Road. Yes, so we might get.
Yep.
So that's unanimous.
Yep.
To limit plot sizes to 1 per household while there is a waiting list.
Yep.
Yep, that's unanimous. To notify existing tenants and work with them about our long-term intentions to have 1 plot per household.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, that's unanimous.
Lorna, you're trying to say something, but you're muted.
There's some people at Ivins Road, as Jeanette said, that have had it to 20, 30 years, and some of them walk out the back gates of their house onto the plot, and it might be a double plot. Really impressive. Does this apply to new tenants or to existing tenants?
Well, it definitely applies to new tenants. So all new tenants can only get 1 plot. Yeah. And working with those, I think it's around 10 tenants that have 2 plots, some would benefit all round having just 1 plot. But again, I don't want to say that we're going to kick them off. I just want your agreement to allow us to have a conversation with them to see what's best for them, and to let them know our aspirations to let as many people have a plot as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, if they've got 2 plots at the minute, they're only using 1. Long term forward, they should only have the one plot, even if it means walking out of their gate and opening and seeing the 2 plots. It should be there so that they can only have 1 plot if they're not using the other plot.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the tenancy agreement is just a 1-year tenancy agreement.
Yeah.
And we could just, cancel that, but after 1 year. But that is not what I'm suggesting.
Yeah. I think we need to look at those that have got double plots and are using them resourcefully and properly, and then be a bit more respectful for them. I think, but obviously, without going into numbers and names and everything else tonight, we need to speak to those people directly. So it's not just a sort of you've lost half a plot. We need to look at that directly and assess that with them. Okay. So what was the next point?
So you have agreed that, yes? You all agreed that?
Yep.
To have a waiting criteria for those people on the waiting list that give priority. The headline ones are that they live in Beaconsfield parish, and the next criteria after that is that they don't have a garden, so they would be higher up the pecking order to get the next allotment than someone who maybe did have a garden. And I can run through all of that criteria if you want me to. It's very short.
Yeah, no, if you could do, just for clarity. Yeah.
Let me just
Do you want me to do it? I've got it in front of me.
So I've got it in front of me. So to live within the parish boundary of Beaconsfield. The next criteria is have no garden. Thereafter, have lost their Parklane allotment and have no other allotment. Thereafter, have a limited smaller garden. Thereafter, living alone or would benefit more in terms of wellness needs. And thereafter, in order of request.
Okay, I think that's a sensible
Alistair and Philip have got their hands up. Alistair? You're on mute.
Sorry, I was going to let Philip go first, but as I'm speaking now, I think the only problem I can think with regard to the Parklane situation is that if I'm currently sitting on Ivans Road waiting list, and let's say I'm number 4 in the queue, and 10 people, want to transfer from Parklane, then I'm not sure that I would be happy for my position in the queue to be put back.
Why would it be?
Well, if you decided to give
Organisation.
priority to
Oh, okay.
people from Parklane.
So whereabouts was Parklane actually in the criteria for actually being eligible?
It's
Number
third.
3.
Third. So first, you've got to live within Beaconsfield. Some
Yep.
people have applied who live in Uxbridge, as an example. Okay.
Yep.
You have no garden, so you can't grow your own vegetables in your own garden.
Yeah.
Which is obviously, I think, the next most important to fill.
Yep.
And then, as Alistair suggests, do we give the next criteria people who have got nowhere to go, who are keen gardeners and allotment holders and have
Yep.
now got nowhere to go from Parklane?
Okay, and what was the 4th?
They've got a small garden, so thereafter it's down to the size of your ability to grow your own at home.
Okay, to be honest, I think that's probably fair, the levels you put, because the people of Parklane, if they're applying and they're being kicked off of their present site, they are doing this because they do actually enjoy it. They're not the people that are actually going to say, well, I'll try this for a year and after 3 weeks say no, I don't want to do it again. So I can understand the criteria there with keeping Parklane at number 3. Alistair.
Well, I'm not sure I got my point across very well, because what I'm saying is actually that you've got 58 people on a waiting list for Ivans Road, some of whom are from Parklane, but other people who have been sitting on that list who are somewhere within number 1 up to number 58 shouldn't have to go backwards in the queue if somebody who's not on the list already, who happens to be losing from Parklane, suddenly wants to join Ivans Road.
Yeah, it's difficult to say where you'd put those people in the queue, really.
I mean, it was a suggestion, but I take your point, Alistair. We could move them further down if you wish. Philip, you had your hand up.
Chairman, yeah, I've got two points actually. The first one was, I think criteria number 2 should be no garden or allotment elsewhere.
Okay.
Because that's the possibility they might have another allotment elsewhere, and clearly if they've got another allotment elsewhere, there shouldn't be a priority. So my second question was my question was really to Jeanette, was around, do we have a sense of how long people have been on the list? What's the longest time?
No, I don't have a sense. I think there are quite a lot of new people that have come on the list that are from Parklane, but I haven't gone trawling back in time to match the name to see how long they've been on that spreadsheet.
Okay.
So I don't know if I could find out that data, but you could put a criteria in, if you all agreed to, if somebody's been on the waiting list for longer than 5 years, they're the next criteria or something, if that's what you were thinking.
I was thinking that. I was thinking maybe a year rather than 5 years, but
yeah. I would probably say 2 years, just because of Parklane probably came up more recently than a year. So if we said one was that I need to live in Beaconsfield, 2 remind me
no
again,
garden or allotment.
No garden, that's it. 3 was
or
that
allotment.
they'd been, that's it. 3 was that they'd actually been on the waiting list for more than 2 years, and then 4 we then go on to Parklane. I think that would be the fairest way of doing it on there, without actually itemising everything and making a Venn diagram of everyone who's currently on there. I think that's probably the fairest way of actually looking at it.
Okay. Sandy's got a hand up, but he's on mute.
Sandy, would you like to say something? Or not?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can.
I'm just one bit concerned about the definition of the parish boundary of Beaconsfield. This would exclude, and perhaps I'm being too pedantic, parts of CDS estate, which are the other side of the brook and therefore outside the parish, but they would certainly regard themselves as Beaconsfield residents. And the same thing is true at the northern end of Sandalswood End, about halfway down. You've got the brook there, and the whole of the Howe Drive estate, it used to be called the Ardwell estate, would also be excluded. And I don't think that's right.
Sorry, Sandy, most of those are detached houses with quite big gardens.
Yes.
So
Yes,
they
that's
probably
true.
wouldn't come under that criteria, but it's a good point about boundary. We could look at it.
I think we have to stick with the parish, don't we? Because it's definable. If you
Yes.
start to say people who think they live in Beaconsfield, you'll find there are a lot more of those.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think keep with the parish boundaries, and I think it's excellent you brought that point up, Sandy. But looking at the houses that are there, I totally agree with Councillor Dunlop in the sense of they've got big gardens, or even they have a garden, full stop, and they could already grow it if they wish to. There, so I think we have to have some boundaries, and I think what we've said with the parish boundaries is probably the sensible way to go. Okay, have we voted on that one?
So I'll just recap then, to live within the parish boundary, to have no garden or allotment elsewhere, to be on the waiting list for 2 years. Then we go to the rest of the chain, which is you've lost an allotment at Parklane and have no other, you have a limited garden space.
Yep.
Yeah, and so on.
Yep, no, I agree with that.
Want to take a vote on that?
Yeah, I'm in favour of that.
Great, that's unanimous.
Chairman, can I just make a suggestion, please?
Yes.
Can I make we had the letter earlier from the Beaconsfield Society. There's 2 things that we picked up that we could potentially feed back to them now. The first is that we already fulfil our obligations to provide allotments through Evans Road. And the second thing is that we're giving prioritisation to former Parklane holders. So I think those are both positive messages that it might be good to share before we take a wider view.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I would probably, I think we could say that as an open spaces committee, and probably as a town council as well, we'd like to grow the actual capacity we actually have for allotments in the town as well. So we're open to ideas for that for the future.
Well, if Jeanette carries on down her list of recommendations, that's on there.
Exactly. Okay. We've discussed to enable people to have to reduce plot sizes where suitable.
Yeah.
And in agreement. Are you all agreed to that?
Yeah, I think we covered that one, didn't we? But yes.
And I've listed, so to investigate the potential for adding better water supply.
Yeah, I think that the whole idea of actually improving in there would that's quite an important thing.
Do you all agree to that, or show of hands?
Yeah, I think we also need to look at water supply from a point of view of cost as well. Currently, what we charge people for the plot doesn't actually include water, I believe, but we give it free.
To encourage a residents' association for the allotments, yes. That's
yeah.
And also to hold an annual allotment competition, yes. And which the mayor will judge.
Definitely.
And most importantly, to explore further new locations for allotments in Beaconsfield, please.
Very good.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent suggestion, because one thing we have noticed with this pandemic, and certainly from the amount of emails we've had from people for reference allotments in the past few weeks is that there is a very keen interest in the people of Beaconsfield, that those people that don't have the ability to be able to do it in their own garden, to actually have their own allotment, which I think is fantastic, because what you can teach yourself, you can then teach on to others, which they can then actually do in their own garden, which I think is fantastic, because for too long we've just had grass and we've mowed it. If we can actually have allotments and actually be a bit more self-sufficient, there's a lot of good to be had from that, both from a mental well-being and obviously from a dietary point of view as well. So yeah, the whole idea of allotments, it's not just a case of popping down there on a Sunday once a week and digging a bit of earth. I think there's actually a lot more to it than that's actually given credit for. Okay.
Well, I just wanted to make the point that the last suggestion about looking for alternative sites obviously is part and parcel of how we respond to the question that was raised earlier. But I think it's something that we need to do straight away, not to delay.
Yes.
Okay. So with that regards to recommendation 9, I think I saw all unanimous vote there. Did I see a unanimous vote there, Philip?
I believe so.
Okay. Okay, that's allotments done for me. Lorna.
Okay, wonderful. So I think now, unless anyone's got any other questions, I think we'll probably move on to item number 9.
Lorna's got one.
Oh, Lorna, I missed you there, sorry.
So how do we proceed on that last matter of looking for alternatives? Is that a working
yes
group set up, or is that Jeanette's next task?
I'm not sure if we've actually got any more council land.
It will be that the clerk will have to look at, because I haven't even had a chance to read all the letters that have come in. They were still coming in this afternoon. There is a suggestion that it is an obligation, but as Philip Baskin said earlier, and as far as I'm aware, the statutory duty has been fulfilled, although the letters seem to think that that statutory duty has not been fulfilled. So there are things that we need to look at. We need to examine if we have other land available. We'll have to prepare a report. What I would say is that most of the letters that I have received are from Parklane allotment holders whose tenancies are up in 2 months' time, and who believe that we can undergo some sort of compulsory purchase before that time, and that's unrealistic, I'm afraid. But we can certainly talk to the landowner. We can certainly find out what's going on. We can find out what options are available in the town, what land is available, and we can bring that back as a report to full council, or to whatever the next meeting that it's going to be possible to bring it back to. So we are obliged to consider this request very seriously.
No, that's very good. Okay. Yeah, anybody has any ideas on any land that we could actually use, be it council owned or anything else, that would be, all ideas are greatly appreciated, because we can see there is a strong demand in Beaconsfield for allotments. Okay, right, I think we can move on to number 9, Malthouse Square Playground. Jeanette, I think this is probably over to you again, because from the amount of information I've actually been reading, you have actually spent a lot of time on this project so far. Yeah, I'll pass straight over to you, because you know everything. It's great.
Well, I don't know about that. Well, Jackson and I have been working on this project. So in summary, you've seen the officer's report, and there's a mountain of information that you could have also trawled through should you wish to do so. So in summary, Malthouse Square Playground equipment needs some significant maintenance and repair, and various bits are deteriorating, and there are maintenance issues that are rising. through the years, there's been money set aside every year for the new Malthouse Square playground, which gives us 40k in the kitty. We went out to tender in September for a new replacement playground at Malthouse Square, and we've had 5 good comprehensive tenderers. So this is to replace the under 7s and over 7s play area. So I've been perhaps quite granular in what I asked the tenderers to provide so that I could analyse best value for money. And you will see by the spreadsheet how that pans out and compares with what we have currently there in terms of number of bits of equipment, so the fun stuff you can play on, and what that costs broadly compared with the 5 tenderers who've submitted. And I've grouped them so that we cover our bases. So there's always a swing, there's always a springer, there's always a slide, and all the key things that people want to see. Of note is that by going to the playground on numerous occasions, speaking to the children and also the mums while in that tender process as well, I think it would be fair to say that even though the zip wire is out of action, everyone loves the zip wire. Okay, so I propose that goes back in, and also I think a more robust net climber to go in. So all of which is possible in that footprint. Okay, so before I go through to the recommendations, do you have any questions? So
what I've seen so far out of all the different people, it looks like the Wickstead are the main people that actually make the stuff in the UK. Am I correct in what I've read so far?
Yes, the contractor that I've recommended, which is purely on cost benefit to equipment and installation, happen to be quite creative in their designs, but they are a UK manufacturer of about an hour and a half away. So we have the extra security in terms of maintenance and don't have the issues we have trying to get bits of kit from far-flung countries. Okay,
so like for instance, the problems we've had with the present zip wire, with getting the chair, etc., and you're talking about the other swings with baskets that don't have any baskets. This company, I should imagine, are going to be more proactive to if we have any issues.
Yes, and they also have very good guarantees ranging from lifetime to 5 years for certain things, so it's quite useful. Okay. Live, you can't see, but quite a number of people have got hands up. So shall I?
Yeah, I can see Philip's his hand up first of all. What did you have to suggest, Philip?
It was really just a question around, I mean, obviously we're going from a proposal 40 to 80 to improve the park, and obviously I think we've got a desire to improve the play facilities. My question is really with Hotspur Park, I think 100,000 was spent, and I think only about 40 of that was from the council, because we explored other, or the local residents explored, and the Friends of Hotspur explored alternative funding options. Is that something either that we have looked at or we could look at? For example, the community board has substantial funds available that could go towards the cost.
So can I just ask, we applied to L&Q, I think last year before we went out to tender, or maybe it was even end of 2019 before we went out to tender, and that bid wasn't successful.
Have we tried any of the others? Viola, Tesco's, Buckinghamshire Council?
Since then, we have not gone out to tender. Sorry, not gone and asked anyone else for quotes, because we decided that we would get it costed and get some tenderers out there. So it doesn't stop us going out and seeking funding now, knowing more clearly what we have. It just, when you go out to ask for funding, you can't start the project until they've approved and given you that money. So it would delay the start.
Okay.
I think that's worth exploring, Chairman. I accept Jeanette's point. You've got to get it all your ducks in a row before you can look for funding elsewhere, but it might be worth exploring given the cost has gone up quite a lot.
Okay. Alexa, is it something we can actually commit the funds ourselves to actually move the project on, and then and actually apply to places like Viola to see if they actually do, even in this current pandemic, to see if they actually have any funds to actually help us along with it?
It's something that we can do now that we've got actual costs rather than
Estimates.
Just an estimate. That we've got an actual cost. We can go out and put funding bids together from, we can try again with L&Q because they really should be funding this. They've got a lot of housing in that immediate area. We could try Veolia, we could try the Heathrow Community Fund. There are various funds that we could look at on there. We do already have 40,000 in reserve for this, and it could be, you know, playgrounds always need replacing, so we will have to continue to commit funds. And I know that Councillor Pike has been doing quite a lot of research into this as well, about how we would look to keep all of our playgrounds properly resourced into the future, and so that we can be prudent with our budget and manage those finances effectively. I think we've got Alex and Jackson both with their
Jackson, we get to you first, Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm speaking, you know, from my experience as a father of two young children going to the playground very regularly. I just want to say that I'd just like to draw to the committee's attention that the playground is, in my opinion, seriously dilapidated. And I think it's one of the main sort of attraction points for young children and young families in Old Town and New Town. And you know, I appreciate Hotspur has its playground, but for Old Town and New Town, this is a significant sort of community asset that has not been invested in my opinion, or underinvested in. Whilst I appreciate what Philip has mentioned about funding, and I do agree we have a duty, or we should try to go out and get funding. I don't know how this is going to impact on a timeline. So I would urge, my colleagues here to say, well, let's commit the funds to it, but also try our best to mitigate our cost on this, purely because when this pandemic is over, we want to, for the mental health of our young families and children, get them out there socializing and playing again. And I think if we were to sort of go out and wait or put a pause on it, then it could be next summer before this comes into place. And if you only have to go and take a look around the playground to know that a lot of the equipment is not fit for purpose anymore. That's all I wanted to say, and I hope we can give it its full support, but work behind the scenes to recover some costs from it. I also would like to note that we have just sold a piece of land. We should be reinvesting in the community.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you in the sense of, from a time perspective, we want to get the ball rolling on this as soon as possible. If there's anything we can actually do to actually recuperate anything from other interested parties which are interested in helping the community of Beaconsfield, we should wholeheartedly go down that road as well. But I think as a council, and certainly as a committee, we should commit to actually spending this money in advance to actually get the ball on. We've got £40,000 towards £80,000 already set aside, and I think wholeheartedly that we should progress this, but at the same time also look at other generous benefactors out there which may be willing to match our spending, or even just contribute some type of sponsorship towards it. So yes,
Thank you.
Councillor Dunlop, you've got your yellow hand up in the air.
I have, yeah, thank you.
Then you've got Graham, and also Jeanette wants to come back on something.
Thank you.
Mine is 2 points. Firstly, I'd like to agree wholeheartedly with Jackson's sentiments about moving this forward and being able to get a park up and running, and it certainly looks wonderful in the designs. In reply to Philip's question about putting this out for observation, especially with members of the public, we did a couple of years ago, I think it was at the Beaconsfield Now event held in the rugby club, and we had quite a group of women together. We put in a sort of a ticket and went and asked and handed out leaflets. And out of that group of residents, we then called on them again, and unfortunately we weren't able to get any support. And I think, Jeanette, you were involved in that? I can't remember now, but we did ask them. And unfortunately, it was just, for some reason, we couldn't gain any interest. And then the problem is, as is the way, things sort of lie quiet and then go slightly dormant for a while. Meanwhile, the much used and loved play park is dilapidating in front of us. So I really strongly do wish for this to move forward. Yep. And I think it's great work that both Jackson and Jeanette have done by being able to push this forward at a reasonable pace now. My second point is just about the equipment there. I noticed on the designs there's only one table and chair, but I think we put an application in for more. Tables and chairs within the park are really, really beneficial. When I go down there, and I do walk around sometimes sort of looking at trees or whatever it is that I'm down there for a council reason, there are lots of parents who sit in the sunnier days, who sit on the ground. And it is really great to have a table and a chair that you can sit at, and then the parents can sit and debate the world's problems while the children play around. And that's my observation there. Thank you.
Okay, Graham, I see you've got your hand up. You've muted yourself, Graham.
No, I'm afraid I muted him.
Ah, sorry.
Back.
Hang on. Can you hear me now?
We can.
My goodness, that's great. Yes, I opened Malthouse Square when I was mayor, 12-13, and I can recall how much the original cost was, because there were two superb young ladies from Malthouse Square that raised substantial funds, and we topped it up. And we did agree to meet the maintenance costs. And it is with somewhat surprise, I have to say, that the maintenance costs appear to be double what we thought they were going to be. Now, I know that initially there was some vandalism, particularly around the rubber mats which were set on fire, if I recall, around the swings. But I guess that's not due to where we are. Having read the report, clearly there is wear and tear. And to be frank, what worries me, and I don't know whether Philip's got any comments on this, Hotspur Park is in a similar vein. Of course, it's much newer. And I'm sorry, technically, I don't know whether the zip wire, I assume, is very similar to the one at Malthouse Square. The council is letting itself in for some significant maintenance costs here. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm not disputing that we should be using those or utilizing those costs for the benefit of the children of Beaconsfield. But I think we need to be aware of where we are. We haven't even been looking at the other one at St Mary's, which presumably is, and so we're having 3 play areas to review. So that is my concern. You know, I'm not disputing that this, because it's a very comprehensive report, and Jeanette has. You should be an accountant, Jeanette. It's very good, the tender process, and I've looked at it very closely. But what I am concerned about is going forward, whatever we choose to use to implement, that we hopefully don't have the same maintenance costs that we've currently appear to have. Or am I missing something?
I'm not sure there, Graham. What your thoughts on maintenance costs? How much were you thinking the maintenance costs were?
Well, we've got 40,000 in the fund, haven't we? I mean, I was mayor 12-13, so presumably we're 20, say 2020. So we've 7 years, 40 divided by, so we put something like 6,000 or 7,000 a year into the pot to cover maintenance. Clearly, that was inadequate by the sound of it, because I say, reading the report from John, it sounds terrible. Which really worries me. So we should have put a lot more in. What worries me is that, if we're talking about having to make a reserve of 20k per the 3 sites that we have, i.e. Hotspur here and at St Mary's, that's a very significant amount of money. Alistair, Alistair's probably a lot more knowledgeable than myself. So I will shut up.
Okay, Alistair, if you've got some more accurate figures, that'd be good.
Yeah, I mean, I think one has to understand that the £40,000 is a reserve which has been added to at the rate of £10,000 per annum for the last 4 years only, which was a point at which I said, if we go on the way that we're going on and never make a provision, we will never have any money towards replacement. We also spend money on annual maintenance and refurbishment, which goes into our revenue expenditure. So we are actually trying to provision for the future maintenance costs with this kind of equipment, because the wear and tear is very much in line with the amount of usage that it gets. Now, if you go back to 2012, etc., when this equipment was first installed, there have been major changes now in terms of the way in which the equipment is manufactured and the longevity that we should be looking for in the future. So I think that where we need to be is probably where we are now, which is that we start the cycle with 50% of the money up front, and then for the next 4 years, we are repaying the money that we're borrowing from ourselves to get to the point where we then start provisioning again for the next cycle. But I would think that probably the equipment that will go in now will last for 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Alexa.
Yeah, what I was going to say, I knew that Alistair had the information, but I was going to say the same thing. We do spend money on maintenance, and what I would say is that we spend significantly less on Hotspur Park because the equipment is the construction of the equipment is a lesser burden maintenance wise, whereas the Malthouse Square, which is that bit older, was also predominantly, there was a lot of wood, and in the setting that we have, that's why we have attracted more vandalism, and we've also had a lot of stuff rotting out, which as soon as people have seen that it's rotting out, we've had fences being kicked out by 10-year-olds, and because it's so easy, a 10-year-old can just see that it wobbles and push it over, whereas the stuff at Hotspur Park is significantly more robust. It's more resistant. We haven't had anything like the maintenance costs at Hotspur that we have been dealing with in the last few years at Malthouse. So I think Malthouse was fine to start with, but as you say, it's been there a long time, and it really does need changing. I think Sandy wants to come in.
Sandy.
Yes, going back to one of the points earlier about funding, there are 2 funds that I think I ought to mention that might be worth exploring. There is a Clare Foundation, who are approachable, and there is also the Hearts of Bucks. The Hearts of Bucks, I think, is limited to £5,000, but I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure of any limit on the Clare Foundation if they like the proposal. It's just two things to have in the notes so that we can refer to them when it comes to going out and asking for funds.
Okay, thank you for that, Sandy.
Sorry to interrupt. I don't think there is a limit, actually, Sandy. I'm an ex-trustee of the Hearts of Bucks. I'm not a trustee anymore, having retired. I don't believe there is that 5K limit, but they tend to limit the the extent of the grant, if I can put it like that. But this is actually, you're quite right, actually, Sandy. This is something which I think they would be, if they were able to, be keen to support. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so I think we're basically all in agreement that Malthouse Square equipment needs to be enhanced, just due to the fact that some of it is not fit for purpose anymore, and we could end up with the possibility of bits being having to be cordoned off or removed at extra expenses if we don't take action as soon as possible. While I would love to say, okay, we'll defer this till June, and we'll see what we can raise in the form of some additional funds towards it. I think it's more appropriate that we get the actual decision made on which company to use. From what I have read and what I have seen, I would say Wickstead, as being a British company and being a local company, and with good guarantees, and being of obviously with good guarantees, they expect the stuff to last. They don't expect to have problems. So that's why I would recommend them. I think we should certainly go down that route, and I think we should certainly, seeing as we've already got part of the funding already there, look to proceed this as quickly as possible, because coming out of lockdown, what we will be wanting is for children to actually play together. We've heard of schools where, when they went back after the first lockdown, where kids took days before they would actually talk in class because they weren't used to that environment. And if they're not used to being able to play with other children, then that is not going to be good for everyone's future, theirs and ours. So having play equipment where they can interact, certainly over this summer and future summers, I think is, as Jackson says, is something we need to get sorted as soon as possible. I think there are some things we can certainly take away. That the original Wickstead things, we would like to see some more benches for seating in there, and a kids zip wire. I think we should those are key features we should ask them to add on to their list, and ask them if they can sharpen their pencil any further. And I think we should proceed with this, but at the same time, see if we can actually get any funding towards it as well. Alexa, have you any other thoughts that we haven't covered as councillors tonight so far?
I think that's fine. I think one of the recommendations in the report was about the budget, which you would really have to refer to resources for budget and funding. But that's kind of what we expected would happen. So if there are additions that you would like to add to this this spec that we've got, because I know that Jackson, was it you were talking about the climbing net and as being missing? Sorry, Jeanette. Was it?
Pyramid.
Oh,
pyramid net.
Once we've selected a contractor, Jackson and I will work with them to get the final design tight and specific, including net and zip wire and the exact layout for these things, and it be in a position to bring that forward to resources. So there's no ambiguity at that point.
Okay, so what I would suggest that the committee could do on the report that you've got, if you could decide which is your preferred tenderer, which it's sounding like you like number 5 of our tenders, the one that
As long as that's Wickstead, yeah.
that appears to be the one. Glad we're keeping it so anonymous. That's great. That's fine. If you would like to vote on whether the committee does approve them as your preferred supplier, then Jeanette is able to follow the second recommendation to inform all the tenderers what the situation is, and we can spend the next few weeks ahead of the resources meeting looking at getting that, as you say, getting their pencil sharpened, getting any extra items in there that you would like, and also we could examine, I don't know how far we will get with, but we can certainly examine what sources of funding might be out there, so that additional funding, so that by the time you get to resources, you can have a good kick around of all that information, and we can take that forward then to full council.
Okay, can I, just because we've been in this sort of situation before where we've agreed something, but the finer details have needed tweaking, it's then gone to resources, and certain people have then said that we haven't actually done everything in the correct order, and they've then tried to send it back to a committee because everything hasn't been agreed. Can we just make sure that we are clear tonight that the decision we are making is that we as a council are happy to, or as a committee, to propose to resources that we will, as a council, fund the Malthouse Square playground refurbishment, and that we will be asked. Sorry, Karen.
Because unfortunately that funding spend is outside the limit of this committee, and it will have to go to full council. But at least if you can support the tender that you prefer here, then we can ask resources to look at the funding and the justification around that, and then you can go to full council, because this is outside the spend of resources as well, and it must be a full council resolution by the time you decide how this is going to go ahead.
Wonderful. So I would like it to make it clear that the full council will be voting on this at the full council meeting for this to actually go ahead and be rubber stamped, not for the full council to then kick it back to Open Spaces Committee for them to agree it, to then go back to full council. I just don't want that lingo of it going round in circles and nothing happens. We want the merry-go-round to go round in the circles and the kids to be playing on it, not in the council. So we are going to go from here to resources. Resources will then agree the figure, which will be in the quote, which we will have for resources, and then that will then go to full council for full council to actually say, yes, as a council, we are fully happy to actually proceed with this, and that it will not, we are not asking for it to be kicked back to us in our June meeting. We have made the decision that we want the Malthouse Square playground to go ahead, and that our chosen supplier will be number 5, and that is the next stage in the thing. So it's not going to be kicked back to us to actually look at again.
Absolutely, and then the only next thing will be the suggestions for funding. If we are going out for funding, we would have to make sure that we kind of get something going with those funding applications, so that we could bring that back. That's unlikely to be. No.
But that would just be a bonus if someone gives us some money towards it. But from our Open Spaces Committee, we are happy to recommend that the town council uses their 40,000 in reserves, and then uses the rest of the money from other sources within the council, and then to ongoingly be able to ask resources to budget each year for future years of maintenance or replacements down the road. And that's what I'm proposing that we vote on tonight. Graham's got his hand up with one last question.
Chair, very quickly, I do admire your business-like approach, Clive. May I ask, I don't know whether we know, how, if we approve the works, how long they will take to implement?
Jeanette, you seem to have that answer.
I do have that answer. In anticipation of the question, once we place an order with them, they would take, without knowing the date of the order, 6 weeks to erect the fences and make the changes.
Sorry, that's 6 weeks to actually do it and actually implement it.
6 weeks to go on site from date of order.
Wow.
Right, okay, then there's the actual making.
Then there's doing
okay.
it. So, and that's the one question that I'm going to wing it slightly. I think it, let's say 2 to 3 weeks to actually stick it all together and have it all up and done.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great.
So we're looking at the end of July, August, aren't we? Roughly.
And by that
depends
time,
when full council is. Full council is in March.
Around the 18th. Yeah, I need to check that date because I've changed it.
Right.
It will be on.
So they could be up there at the end of April, earliest.
It'll be on the 18th of March as full council.
Oh,
so we could
May. That means May, not April.
So potentially going forward, we could see if everything goes tick, we could actually see us by the longest day of the year being able to go on a spin around and on the playground. Excellent.
You can go on the wire, Clive.
Yeah, I go on the zip wire. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So the earliest they could probably start would be the end of April. So we're talking around the end of May.
Okay, but by the longest day would be a fantastic target to have hit it. Just thinking of the water fountain, so that's fine.
Thanks.
Okay, so yes, so if everyone can remember what I actually said a minute ago, what we were suggesting we voted on, if I can see a ray of hands, that'd be great.
You are going to nominate tender number 5 as your preferred bidder. Perhaps you could just vote on that initially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chairman, can I just send my apologies? I'm going to duck out. It is Chinese New Year, so I just wanted to be in for the Malthouse Square.
Happy New Year.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much.
Happy New Year. Yes, indeed.
Happy New Year.
Thank you for all your help, Jackson.
No worries.
Thank you.
Credit to you. You've done all the hard work. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Right. And then the only other resolution was to that we'll inform all tenderers and stand the others down and inform.
Excellent.
I know, because we're not awarding yet, Jeanette.
Yes, because of the size of the tender, I don't want to stand the others down. I want to say to the winning tenderer, we're going to work with you until we have an agreement, and then the other tenderers stand in the wings, and should we not reach agreement, then we go back to the other tenderers.
Okay, all right. So they've done all the resolving that they need to do at the moment, which is to resolve.
And do they need to resolve the amounts of money?
I was going to say
that's outside the spend of this committee.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. But I think we've made it quite clear about the timeline about not getting it kicked back. Do you need a resolution on that, or are you? Is it crystal clear of we don't want this kicked back to us for us to make a decision just to say yes? Yeah.
It's crystal clear. You have selected tender number 5 as your preferred supplier, and this will go forward to the resources committee and then subsequently to full council. So they're
talking to vote to approve.
They're talking about the money and how we fund it and whether we need funding bids and that sort of thing. But you've made the choice of your tender and your equipment, except for the changes that you've asked Jeanette to make.
You've taken it on board, Clive. The other point which you haven't made is that the council elections are on the 6th of May. Salient point.
It is. So we'll have voted on this as a council before that happens anyway.
Can I
But
just
indeed,
that's-
but this is something which councillors can convey to the electorate, can they not?
I don't think that's for discussion tonight, but I
No,
understand where you're coming from.
You are live on YouTube. The reason that the full council meeting is moving forward to the 18th is because the election will be called on the 22nd, at which point you will go into Purda and
No. Sorry, I do understand, but it would be helpful if the electorate understood that we were making decisions that will be of their benefit in the very near future, if I may put it like that.
I think we've been a fantastic council and they will vote on us anyway. Okay.
Hopefully they will.
You are not allowed to say any of this.
No. Okay. So we should speedily move on. I need to go and find a lead to keep my battery going. Ruben Green sports field.
Okay,
do you have anything more progress to tell us?
First of all, Lorna's got her hand up.
Can I be excused too? Just for quorum if I don't. Sorry,
I'm not sure.
It's fine. This is just a report, and all I was going to say is that we've got a mole. Yeah. However, I've got a lovely new pest control chap who has trapped the mole and dealt with the gliss.
Humanely, I hope.
Infestation. I don't ask questions. The mole has been dealt with, at least the mole at Woburn Green Lane. So we are.
Was he responsible for the subsidence as well?
Apparently not, but he has had a really good go, and luckily it wasn't on the pitches, it was to the side of the pitches. We do have a rabbit problem there as well currently, so whilst we're not playing football because of lockdown, I've got this new pest control company sort of dealing with all of that.
Excellent.
And that was it. So the next so we're on to date of next meeting. Sandy's got his hand up.
If I may, could I raise the point of the picnic area, which is within the boundary of Beaconsfield? It's land that is not owned by us. It is, in fact, restricted access by some iron objects, which I've mentioned before in the chamber, and is very unsightly. And I think is dangerous to young kids because it's iron and it's rusting. It is also a patch of land that I would like to see being used for the benefit of our residents. And it's open space at the moment, so I can't see any reason why I couldn't raise it in the Open Space Committee.
I know you've asked me about that before, Sandy, and I have done some investigation as to who it's owned by. I thought it was Buckinghamshire County Council, and it may well be because it's they who have placed the metal blocks there because they didn't want to maintain the bins and things like that, I think.
Maybe we could ask them to change them to the concrete version instead. Maybe from a safety point of view. They may have put them there as a temporary thing many years ago to stop encroachment from caravans, etc., and dumping. And maybe they could just change those to concrete, which is what they've used other places. It's something which I know you have an extensive list of things to do, Alexa. But if
maybe Bucks could sell it to us for £1 and we could use it as parking for the football.
Well, I went into that a long time ago and was negotiating with Bucks at that time, which is of course before the new council was being formed, before Unitary was formed. It was because of insurance that the trust that I was setting up to acquire this for the benefit of the town just couldn't proceed. But circumstances are different. I think also we might consider nominating it as a community asset, which might make our negotiating posture rather more easy when we talk to Buckinghamshire Council. But I certainly think it's something that we should debate, perhaps on another occasion. For me, I'd like to move forward as fast as we can. But I don't think we should ignore it because it's not been mentioned at this committee again.
Dare I say it, could it be an allotment?
It could well be. It's ground slopes, but it could be tiered. They grow wine in southern facing. You can grow wine on it if you were Italian, but I'll leave that for other more experienced people to decide.
Excellent. Beaconsfield wine shop.
Community vineyard.
Yeah.
I like that one,
I'm
as long
not
as we get to
sure.
drink it.
I'm not sure how big it is. That was all I was going to say about Woburn Green Lane, and I noticed that Deb has got her hand up, although she's not a member of the committee or the council. But
I did notice that as well. Maybe
you can
it
invite
might be something that might be helpful.
I'm speaking of
invite her.
Councillor. It was originally owned by Bucks County. It probably still is owned by Bucks County. They offered it to the parish to for us to maintain it, and we didn't want to, so it was locked away. That's what we were offered it once before.
Okay,
Thank you for that.
I'll find out. I'll find out if they could offer it again.
Thank you.
Okay, so that probably covers the Woburn Green Lane sports fields. Date of next meeting, 7th of June.
17th.
17th of June, I think that's what it says on my notes here. Is that what you're proposing? That's excellent. We actually will have one more recently than last year. Okay. I think unless anyone's got any holiday plans for that day, I don't currently. I think we can say yes to that. And that probably brings us to a conclusion of part 1 for the evening.
Okay, I will stop the